Welcome to Stellar Sisters, the podcast where cosmic wisdom meets soul-enriching conversation.
We explore astrology, human design, and the unique blueprint of your soul, helping you understand yourself on a deeper level.
Consider this your permission slip to embrace the magic of being authentically you.
Let's begin.
Hi, and welcome back to Stellar Sisters. I'm your host, Shaniel, your guide for all things astrology, joined by Sydney, your guide for all things human design. And today's episode is all about the astrology of February 2026, because February marks a huge turning point in the year where Saturn enters Aries. Neptune has entered Aries. We have our first eclipse in Aquarius, which is ruled by this Saturn and Neptune conjunction that we're having. And then on March 3rd, we have another eclipse in Virgo. So we have an eclipse portal. We have a huge once-in-a-lifetime conjunction between Saturn and Aries and Neptune. And it just marks a very pivotal turning point in the year. And I want to break down all of the astrology of February so you can be aware of what's happening and have context for what's happening collectively and personally in your own chart. But before we jump into that, before we orient ourselves to where we're going, I want to take a moment in reflection and look back a little bit on Saturn in Pisces and Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, which we have been experiencing those transits for quite some time. So I'd like to just take a moment and think back on some of those themes that we've been experiencing collectively, and then also in our own lives. And Sydney and I both have some reflections on Saturn and Pisces in our own charts and what that means. So I like to start there. So Neptune has been in Pisces since 2011. So it's been there for almost 15 years. So it's been a long time since Neptune has been in Pisces. And so the fact that Neptune is shifting signs this year into Aries is a big, big, big deal. And it's shifting from this watery sign, which fits very well with Neptune's core significations of compassion and emotions and illusion and dreams, to a very fiery Aries sign, which is about taking action and individualism and passion, and the warrior sign. So Neptune in Pisces. Pisces is the sign that represents compassion and empathy and really tapping into your emotions. And with Neptune in Pisces since 2011, I think we've seen an explosion of those themes. And it's been since 2011, we've really had this rebirth of spirituality, which is very Piscean. Astrology and tarot and meditation and manifestation and just
Human design.
Human design and just spirituality in general has seen a huge renaissance since then, with Neptune going into Pisces. And also just like mental health and taking care of our mental health with Neptune in Pisces, like since 2011, mental health and taking care of your emotional space has been so huge and like has just like totally blew up. And that was not a thing when, like, before then. Like, that was really not a thing when we were in college. That was not a thing when we were growing up. Like mental health or going to therapy or seeing a counselor, or that was very like taboo up until, I would say, around 2011 when Neptune went into Pisces and really normalized that.
Yeah, that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, no one talked about that stuff growing up. And yeah, I graduated college in 2011, and that was, it was taboo almost to go to therapy. like something's wrong with you if you're going to
Yes.
a therapist. Something
Hmm.
tragic must have happened that you have to go and talk to somebody. But
Hmm.
now it is so much more normalized and, just living our daily lives. Like we need someone to talk to at this point.
Yes. Yeah. Mental health support has become normalized, which I think we needed.
Yeah.
I think we desperately needed that.
Yeah.
And then also the rise of spirituality. I think people need something bigger than themselves to help them get through, to help them just live by having a connection to something greater than you. And I think spirituality specifically because so many people are disillusioned by organized religion and have so many traumatic experiences with organized religion. And
Mm.
so I think it set this beautiful stage up for spirituality to have that connection without maybe past connection to past trauma of organized religion that they might associate with. So
Mm.
um, I think all of those themes is what Saturn in Pisces, or I'm sorry, Neptune in Pisces brought.
Yeah.
And then during our Neptune in Pisces transit, we had Saturn enter Pisces as well. And Saturn has been in Pisces since 2023 until present day, until February 2026, when it will enter Aries. And so over the past 3 years, Saturn is a very maturing planet. It's a planet of responsibility, of discipline, of hard work and effort. Um, and I think since Saturn went into Aries, or sorry, I feel like I'm gonna say that a lot between Pisces and Aries and all of the different signs that
Yeah.
I'm talking about. So
Yeah. It's hard.
hopefully you understand what I'm saying. So with Saturn in Pisces, I think it was Neptune and Pisces can really stir up all of our emotions and our empathy and our compassion. And then when Saturn, this very sobering planet, enters Pisces, it can have us get real about those topics. And I think one good reflection I have on Saturn entering Pisces since 2013 is really
2023.
2023. Thank you, Sydney. So, Saturn in Pisces has been about taking responsibility for our emotional boundaries and our compassion and boundaries. And I think one thing we've seen collectively is this idea of quiet quitting, which, if you don't know what that is, it's kind of like you're still at work and you're like going through the motions of the day, but maybe you're doing the bare minimum and you're not investing yourself emotionally into what you're doing, and can really have this emotional withdrawal or this boundaries around your empathy or your compassion, and really maybe taking more responsibility for your emotions and what you put your emotional energy into with Saturn
Mm.
in Pisces. And so there can be really this sense of burnout, this emotional burnout, specifically with Saturn in Pisces, and the sobering realization of, oh, I'm responsible for where I put my emotional energy. And I'm responsible for creating those boundaries where they are needed.
Mm.
And that Saturn in Pisces can help us put a container around our emotional capacity, which can be very beneficial to a lot of us, I think, especially people who are maybe drawn towards intuitive, empathic, um, emotional work, like I know I am. It can be helpful for us because Neptune is watery. It can just leak out and go everywhere and be everything. And so Saturn can really help us have those boundaries around that.
Mm.
And so I think we can all really relate to feeling burnt out, and feeling emotionally burnt out. And I think that that Saturn in Pisces has taught us a lot of lessons around that since 2023.
Yes. 100% agree with that.
Yeah. And so for me specifically, Saturn in Pisces and Neptune in Pisces has been my third house. Um, and so I just want to share a couple of reflections around Saturn transiting my third house specifically, because I think it's really interesting and I think it's helpful to hear maybe how some of these things manifest for other people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And so if you're an Aquarius rising, you will have Saturn going into your third house in Aries. So I don't know, that might be helpful for you to maybe help contextualize what this transit might mean for you. And so the third house is the house of communication. It's the house of reading, writing, speaking, teaching, um, your mental capacity. Can be about learning something new or teaching something new. And so when Saturn went into my third house, so since 2023, I started a podcast, which is a huge Saturn in the third house type of theme, and really had me working on my communication and um, getting my voice out there and making my voice heard. And I think since starting this podcast, I hope I have grown a little bit in my communication style. I think when we first started, it was very much a learning curve, and that, you know, okay, how do I say this concisely and succinctly, and how do I get out all of the information without rambling, you know? And I'm still learning that, but that was a huge Saturn in the third house lesson for me. The third house can also be the third house is also the house of transportation and short distance travel. And with Saturn in my third house, the car that I was driving got totaled. And so I had to get a new car, which is very Saturn in the third house, which can maybe represent difficulties with transportation, or things like that. So that was a very Saturn in the third transit. Um, and then also, last thing with Saturn in the third is I wrote an article for a magazine on the 2026 horoscopes, that was published in the Buffalo Spree. So if you haven't read that article, I encourage you to go to Buffalo Spree and read your 2026 horoscope. But that was really the first time that I had done writing in any kind of professional capacity that I was paid for, that was published. So that was kind of a really cool transit, and it's one that I did not anticipate. So if I was someone getting an astrology reading and the astrologer was telling me, wow, there's this big emphasis on communication and reading and writing and speaking, I'd be like, okay.
Yeah, I
But
don't really
looking
resonate
back,
with that.
yeah, it's like, okay, I'm not really sure what that means, but like I pretty much hit every signification of the third house with Saturn
That's
in
so
Pisces.
cool. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
Especially the last one getting published in Buffalo Spree. Congratulations. I love
Oh,
it.
thanks, Sid.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's nice to orient yourself to where Saturn has been in your chart, so you can then look forward to where Saturn is going. So we'll get into Saturn entering Aries in a minute, but I'd love to hear from you, Sydney, where Saturn has been and maybe your reflections on that transit.
Yeah. So I'm a Libra rising. Saturn has been transiting my sixth house for the past 3 years. And sixth house is all about daily routines, work, health, responsibilities. And I definitely hit all of those things. Saturn moved into Pisces. Yeah, it's hard to keep them straight. um,
Yes, when you're talking about it, it's like,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, Saturn went into my sixth house in Pisces on March 7th. That's when it went in 2023. And I got laid off from the job that I had at the time 2 days later. Like
Wild.
immediate. It was an
Wild.
immediate transit for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and, of course, that changed a lot for me in terms of my daily routines and what I was doing. At the time, my daughter was not even a year old. So it was good in a way because I was able to be a stay at home mom full time while I was on unemployment for 6 months. But it was also really stressful to figure out what I was going to do next and just felt kind of lost with everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and, over the last couple years, I've started working part time. Still was a full time mom for a long time on top of that. My daughter just went to school. So, she's gone for a couple hours during the day, but it's felt like a grind with work and routine whilst with
Mm-hmm.
Saturn being in my sixth house.
Yeah, which is a perfect manifestation of that. Saturn in the sixth house is a time where your daily life feels like a grind,
Yeah.
feels like effort. It feels like, wow, I have a lot of responsibilities on my plate.
Yeah, I do. I feel like I have so many responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Work, kid, trying to work on my podcast and human design business and grow that on the side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a lot. And just, basic daily things, taking care of myself and my house. And it's just,
Yeah.
I never feel like I have it all together, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So,
relate to that. I mean, as a mom of young kids or just a mom in general, do you ever feel like you have it all together? I don't
uh,
know.
yeah, probably not. But yeah, I mean, I was looking back in my journals over the last couple of years, and that was a main theme. Like one week I'd be like, this is great, like I'm so proud and it's amazing being Faye's mom and it's just the best thing ever. And then the next week I'd be like, I'm really struggling, this is so hard, I can't believe how hard this is. Like deep dark thoughts sometimes about motherhood. And yeah, it was just the polarity of that, like experiencing that.
Yeah.
And also, I gave birth in 2022, August 2022. So, you know, this transit
You were
then,
still very much freshly postpartum.
yes, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so that was a huge theme over this time. And then I've had a lot of health issues the last couple of years. And this is also because of giving birth and just getting older. But there were so many times that I wrote in my journals, like my body aches, my joints hurt, body pain, headaches. I also, after giving birth, had really painful and heavy periods. And then I started losing a lot of hair. And, that could be because I gave birth, but it's been a thing the last 3 years, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and I've had issues with my back and nerve pain in my leg. And it's been a lot of that. Um, One thing I found that was really cool in February 28th, 2024, so this was like a year into the transit, um, the sun was exactly conjunct Saturn in my sixth house. And that's the day that I started Pilates. And that is something I have stuck with and has been so pivotal. I cannot talk today. But starting Pilates was so pivotal for my health and starting to get back into feeling better in my body and just doing kind of that light movement. But it's finally like I found this exercise that is really helpful for me and I actually enjoy it and I look forward to going and I've been so consistent with it. And I didn't plan to start it on that day, but I went back and looked and it was the exact conjunction of Sun and Saturn in Pisces. And
Wow.
I want to also say this for people listening. This is going to come up soon, I think, right? Yeah, because the sun's going to go over Saturn in Aries.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if there's something that you want to stick to or start, whatever house that it's transiting for you, really think about those topics because it was just so easy and effortless for me to be consistent with this. And I think it has a lot to do with that transit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I talk about with Saturn going into the sixth house in readings, like the beginning of a new health and wellness routine, and
Yeah.
one that you will stick to, and one that, you know, can really pay off in the long run if you kind of are consistent with it. So that's such a beautiful manifestation of that
Yeah.
transit. Oh my gosh, I love
I
that.
know. I saw that and I was like, oh, this is the best example ever. I love it.
Yeah, and when the sun meets up with planets like that, like the sun will meet with Saturn once a year, every year,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like a the brand new beginning of a cycle of a chapter for that Saturn planet. So
Mhm.
yeah, that is exactly right. When the sun meets up with Saturn on that day, it's like a rebirth, a renewal of those Saturn themes of structure and discipline and maturity and responsibility. So the one coming up will be sometime in early Aries season. So yeah, it's a great
Yeah.
time to note to start something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I loved that part of it. But for the most part, I mean, I am looking forward to Saturn leaving my sixth house because it's been a lot, over the summer. I know I talked about this already, but I had 4 to 5 months of excruciating back pain, and then it started to go down into my leg and my left leg with this nerve and muscle pain, and it was just months and months of that. And on top of it, we got sick. I got pink eye. I I don't know. I had so many health issues. And then to round it all out, on Christmas this year, December 25th, I ended up going to the ER because I had chest pain that was going up into my jaw and down my left arm. And actually went back and looked, and I wrote that I started having this in like a whole year before. September 2024 is the first time I started having this like kind of chest pain. But I went to the chiropractor and got adjusted, and it went away, and it would kind of come and go, but it wasn't anything crazy. And then on Christmas, it just kind of got even more inflamed. I didn't know what it was, and I went to the hospital just to see if it was something heart related. Everything was fine. I got an EKG, blood work, everything, and chest x-ray. Everything was fine. And apparently it's just inflammation of the muscles there. So it kind of feels like a side stitch when you go running,
Mm,
kind
hmm.
of feels like that in your chest, but it's scary because it's hard to determine if it's like your heart or if it's muscular. I
I'm
had
glad everything was fine because that can be
Yeah.
really scary when you're having what feels like chest pain and like heart problems potentially. But
Yeah.
um, yeah. And with Saturn in the sixth house, I mean, have you started new types of like healing modalities as well, like
Oh, yeah.
acupuncture and
Yes.
stuff like that?
Yes, I wrote all these down. I started somatics during this time, Pilates. I started going to float therapy for the first time.
Mm,
Um, have tried a lot of different chiropractors until I found one that I really liked. Um, this one now that I have, he like presses on different zones in your head, and based on which point feels the most tender or sore to you, then he adjusts your body depending on which zone.
wow.
That's
So
very,
interesting.
yeah, very interesting. Just so many things I've done. I've been trying to eat healthier. Started breath work during this time. Um, so yeah, I've
Wow.
acupuncture and like tapping, trying to go back to meditation. I did that for a long time years ago. So yeah, I've tried a lot of things over the last 3 years
Yeah.
to improve
And
my health.
do you find that you found the ones that work for you and the ones that you will continue to stick with?
Yeah, I think so. Pilates definitely. Um, Acupuncture for sure is like one of my top things that I just like kept putting off.
Mhm.
But that works. And then, some of the other ones I mentioned are good, but I'm not super consistent with them, but I'll like pull them out when I
Yeah.
need them. Um, and also I started taking like different vitamins and minerals to help with my hair feeling like it was thinning out and falling out. Um, yeah, so
Yeah.
just a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Oh,
Um,
another thing I started is this is one of my favorite things. I started syncing my cycle with tea, with herbal tea. There,
oh,
yes, I gotta maybe should do a whole episode on this, but that's been something that's I think has really finally started to help with my hair. Like it feels like it's growing back more. It feels stronger and healthier. It's not falling out as much when I wash it. Um, and I found this company. I think it's called Sync Botanicals. I'll link it in the show notes if anybody's interested. I don't have a code or anything, but I am loving it. She has a different tea for each part of your cycle. Like when you're
mm.
ovulating, a different tea, when you're bleeding, a different tea, luteal phase, a different tea. I think there's 8 different ones. And I've been doing that for almost 3 months now. And I'm really starting to see a difference, less PMS. Um, yeah, so that's something I recently started that is really cool.
Oh, that's really cool. I've heard of drinking spearmint tea like
Mm.
around like when you're about to get your period or maybe like the first couple of days of your period, and it's supposed to help just like flush excess toxins and help with like PMS and help regulate your hormones.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really cool. I love
Yeah.
that. So you've pretty much like run the gamut on the sixth house, Saturn
Yes.
through the sixth house significations. You've
Yeah.
had a rough go of it health wise. And I just want to say that that doesn't mean that like if everybody experiencing Saturn through the sixth house is going to have all of those health issues like
Yeah.
Sydney has. I think you had a rough couple of years, Sid.
Yeah.
But I mean, you hit the work signification, like work being restructured.
Yeah.
Um, you know, maybe finding work that's more aligned with you because
Yeah.
you were working full time and now you're working part time, which is more in alignment with like work life balance and being a mom.
Yeah.
Restructured a lot of your health routines and found ones that work and found ones that stick.
Mm-hmm.
Seen a lot of different specialists and doctors to kind of um, help your health and wellness. Um, so you've really hit every signification of Saturn moving through the sixth house. So
Yeah.
I like to look back on that so we can kind of see where you've been and then like what is now shifting and changing. So hopefully for you, Saturn in the sixth house is kind of it can be a rough one. And so it's good to know that Saturn is moving out of Pisces, you know, so you hopefully should start to see things improve in for your health. And
Yeah.
now you have you know what works for you. You know what feels good. You can go to Pilates or acupuncture or see your special head chiropractor guy, you know, when you're having issues, and hopefully your health will start to improve.
Yes.
And routines and daily habits that you've set up over the past couple of years hopefully will help you have a smoother kind of daily life as we get into 2026 and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
And so, um, yeah, thank you for sharing all of that. And
Yeah.
so I want to, so February really is this big, huge threshold month. So we're moving from this 13 plus year of Piscean era into this fire cycle, this Aries cycle. So again, it's moving from feelings into doing, moving from dissolving into deciding, moving from surviving to initiating.
Mm.
So it's a very big energy shift. This Pisces can feel foggy and emotionally heavy, and like we're maybe withdrawing a little bit. But the cycle that we're entering of Aries um, is about initiating, is about taking action, is um, about uh, standing up for yourself, about individuality. And so this is what we're collectively moving into. And with all of these big shifts happening in February, I did create a specific reading around this Saturn entering Aries and
Mm.
Neptune entering Aries and the eclipse portal to help people understand what is exactly happening for them in their charts, because it is such a huge turning point. And I want others to be able to understand the energy and work with the energy as much as they can, because I think when you have orientation around what's happening for you, you can work with that energy so much better.
I love that.
Yes, yes, yes. So very excited about that. We'll talk a little bit more about that offering as we go into things, but I just wanted to put that out there that if you are wondering how this energy is going to play out for you, I have an offering for that.
Love that.
Okay, so let's talk about this shift that we're now experiencing. We've talked about where we've been with Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, and now Neptune and Saturn are entering Aries. And so Neptune enters Aries on January 26th, I think. So at the very tail end of January. And this is the first time Neptune is entering Aries in 165 years, roughly.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
like, a long time. And so, again, Neptune is the planet of faith, of meaning, of ideals. Um, and Aries is the planet that represents action and courage and individuality and initiation and conflict, even. So, with Neptune in Pisces, which is much more about our emotional space, Aries is about having agency over our lives, whereas Pisces can feel more withdrawn. Aries is like, okay, well, what are we going to do about it? Having more spiritual courage and ability to act. So we've had this maybe period where we're putting boundaries on our emotional capacity and on our compassion. And I think we needed that time to go inwards and reflect and really get clear around where are we giving too much of ourselves, and having that time to reflect on that. But then when Neptune enters Aries, it's kind of like, okay, now I understand. I can have some visibility around maybe where I'm emotionally leaky, where I need to have boundaries around my emotional capacity. And when Neptune enters Aries, it can be about, okay, now what do I need to do to take action to change that, part of myself, to act on my beliefs instead of just like thinking about it. Which, if you've listened to our other podcasts, is just a huge theme of like going from this inner world to this outer world to making things real, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah, that's a huge theme for this year.
Yeah. So what are you willing to like stand up and fight for with Neptune and Aries? Because Aries is the warrior energy. And with Saturn entering Aries, Saturn enters Aries on February 13th. So just like 2 weeks after Neptune enters Aries. And so this is, going from this period of Saturn in Pisces, which again is about feeling emotionally burnt out, feeling compassion fatigue, to, okay, now my where does that lead me into taking responsibility for things and feeling passionate about things to kind of like stand up and fight for them. Understanding what you need on an individual level to not feel so emotionally withdrawn and burnt out, and being able to create that in your life. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. So powerful.
Yeah. So, I mean, I really see it as an opportunity to really take responsibility for yourself and your life and stand up for your individual needs and wants and desires. And
Mm-hmm.
again, this is just the beginning of the Saturn and Aries transit. It's going to be here through 2028. So, this is a longer term transit. So, we're not going to see these themes immediately, but it is just this huge collective energy shift that we'll see over the next couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, Pisces can sometimes be um, get lost in their emotions and get lost in the sea of victimhood potentially. That can be a shadow side of Pisces. And so, with all of this energy shifting from Pisces to Aries, it can be about no more waiting to be saved, but taking responsibility for yourself and your life. And figuring out this new identity after this period of burnout, because we can't be burnt out forever, right? We have to figure out, how do we rebuild from this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How do we move forward?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so this is happening obviously in different parts of everybody's charts and lives. If you're an Aries, this is huge for you.
Mhm.
This is a huge new era for you. If you're a Libra, this is also huge for you. Like, I'm a Libra sun. And so this is directly opposing my sun, which is a huge energy shift.
Mhm.
Um, Capricorn and Cancer, the other cardinal signs, will also be deeply affected by this, because that Aries energy is going to square those signs. So I think the cardinal signs will feel it the most, maybe. Um, but really, this is happening for all of us in a brand new area of life.
Mhm.
And so it's really helpful to know, okay, what area of life is this moving to, so I can be conscious of it and be aware of it and work with that energy instead of fighting it or be thrown off by it.
Mhm. Wow.
And then what's interesting is, so Saturn and Neptune are coming together exactly at 0 degrees of Aries on February 20th. So this is the conjunction point. And so this is when really this whole cycle starts of Saturn Neptune. And so Saturn and Neptune come together only once every 36 years. So, it's a pretty big deal when they conjoin exactly, because it marks the beginning of a brand new cycle.
Mhm.
And so the last time this happened was 1989, I
Mhm.
believe.
Yeah. I almost
And
have that conjunction.
yeah, yeah, you have Saturn and Neptune both in Capricorn
Yep.
in your chart.
Mhm. I
Yeah,
think
so
one's at 7 and one's at 9 or something like they're close.
yeah.
So,
So you were born either right after or right before.
yeah.
Um, yeah. And so the last time this happened collectively, the Berlin Wall fell, which
Mhm.
is kind of one of the most literal manifestations of a Saturn Neptune conjunction. The wall being Saturn, being the structure, being the boundary, and Saturn being this point of
Neptune.
disillusionment. Or, yeah,
Yeah.
Neptune being this point of disillusionment. So that's like such a literal manifestation that I can't think of any kind of better collective manifestation of that transit.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
So if you can think of that energy, though, in terms of that energy is happening for each one of us somewhere in our lives, where the Saturn Neptune conjunction is taking place in the house, that area of Aries in our birth chart, that's a good kind of visual of the energy that's taking place there. So, what structures need to fall in order for us to rebuild there? What dream do we need to let go of in order to build something new? And there might be a little point of disillusionment somewhere for some of us, because that
Mhm.
Neptune can be very illusory. It can be like, oh, there's um, some dream or some illusion or that's kind of fading away. And it can
Mhm.
be this moment maybe of grief or disillusionment around what we thought we wanted, but it's asking us to dream a new dream. It's asking
Mm.
us to build something new in some area of our life.
Especially if you have a personal planet, 0, 1, 2 degrees of Aries or any of the cardinal signs. I think you're
Mm-hmm.
definitely gonna, I think you'll find maybe there is something that you're looking at with rose colored glasses on. And it might take a little while to get clarity on it,
Totally.
just from me having Neptune transiting Venus, Sun, and my moon through the fifth house when it was in Aquarius.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Just look out for that.
Yeah, that's a very good and real point. And it can maybe even take a couple of years for us to fully unpack and understand what that means or what that is. Because sometimes something can look like truth in the moment, but and everything points to like, okay, this thing is true, but there might be something um, that's not quite right, and you don't quite have all of the facts there with
Mhm.
Neptune.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think that is a good just a good note to kind of have in the back of your head around this transit. And they're meeting up at 0 degrees of Aries, which is just like so significant. Um, Aries, 0 Aries, especially, Pisces is like the baby gestating in the womb. And then Aries is the birth. And 0 Aries is like the moment of the first breath,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
exact moment of birth. And so this is just represents a, a such a strong indicator that there is such a brand new cycle and energy starting. It's like this birth of the brand new cycle. So again, this might take a couple of years to fully kind of like play out or understand, because Neptune and Saturn are more outer planets that take a couple of years to transit through that sign. Neptune's going to be here for another 14 years until what, 2040 or something like that. So it's a longer term transit. But yeah, it's a big deal.
Oh my gosh, yes. It's huge. Zero
Yeah.
degrees Aries. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to see what's going to happen.
Yeah. It's a big turning point. And, you know, things can feel foggy. And then with this Aries energy, it's kind of like, oh, the fog has lifted. And this sobering moment of reality of, oh, I couldn't see clearly, but now I can, maybe start to see clearly this new path that I want to
Mhm.
create.
Mm, I love that.
Yeah. So I can't really oversell how big of a deal this transit is. And on top of all of that, that's just the beginning of February astrology. On top of all that, we're having a solar eclipse in Aquarius in on February 17th. And so this is significant because it's our first eclipse in Aquarius, in the Aquarius Leo eclipses that are just starting to take place.
And
So
that's
it's,
every 9 years, Chanel? Like
yes,
when they switch axis.
yes, exactly. So eclipses happen in about like 8.5 to 9 year cycles. Okay, the last time the eclipses were in Aquarius and Leo was actually 2017 through early 2019. So you can kind of think back to those years in your life for similar themes to potentially come up now. Um, and then prior to that, it was like 2008 to 2009. So
Okay.
You can think back to some of those years. Um, but this eclipse in Aquarius is significant for a couple of reasons. So, Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, and this solar eclipse in Aquarius is ruled by this Saturn in Aries, which is conjunct Neptune. So, this is just re-highlighting all of the Saturn in Aries conjunct Neptune themes for us. And the fact that this is the month where both Saturn and Neptune move into Aries, they have a conjunction, like that's already a lot. But then we also have an eclipse in Aquarius that the Saturn is ruling is just so major. And eclipses are a time of fated events. Eclipses can sometimes feel a little chaotic in energy. It can feel like a lot is shifting and there's a lot of moving parts that we don't necessarily have clarity on how everything is going to land. Eclipses are like the light of the sun and the moon is literally blocked from Earth for a certain amount of time. So it's like the lights go out. And when the lights come back on, there's an entirely new energy. There's an entirely new vibration. There's a new paradigm in the Aquarius part of our lives, the Aquarius house in our birth charts. And so this is a really potent time for us to understand more of that Saturn and Aries story, but also more of our Pluto and Aquarius story, because this Aquarius eclipse is highlighting the newly ingressed Pluto into Aquarius that happened in 2025. So it's just like so much. And I want to take it slowly and I want to make sure that this is easy to digest and understand because there's just such a brand new energy shift that's happening here. So we're getting, that Pluto in Aquarius. Pluto was in Capricorn since 2008 and it just moved into Aquarius last year. So Pluto's going to be here for another like 20 something years, and this is another very slow moving planet, but we're getting our first taste of what this Pluto transit means for us in this brand new area of life. And it's being kicked off by the solar eclipse in Aquarius, which is also highlighting our Saturn and Neptune in Aries conjunction.
Ah. Oh my gosh.
So, this marks and a solar eclipse is a new moon. So it's a new beginning. It's a fresh start. And Aquarius is very future oriented. It's about community, it's about social activism. We can kind of think back to when Saturn was in Aquarius, which was like 2020 to 2022, early 2023, when like social justice and social activism was so huge. Collectively, I think we're going to see a big resurgence in themes like that, which
Definitely.
we're already seeing in the past couple of weeks.
Wait, this also makes me think about, wasn't it Jupiter and Saturn were conjunct in Aquarius at 0 degrees?
Exactly.
They had their big conjunction.
Yes. So that energy and those themes are also going to, and that happened in December. I think it was December 21st of 2020.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it was right on the winter solstice.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of think back to then and what you were doing and what happened in your life and what was changing right around end of 2020, early 2021, because some of those themes can be reactivated now.
Wow.
Yeah,
this is huge.
It is huge. It is huge. And then just one last, we have a final eclipse, which is on March 3rd, which is not quite February, but it's early March. And that's the lunar eclipse in Virgo. And so this eclipse is kind of countering all of that Piscean energy that we were talking about, emotions and empathy and compassion and the burnout that comes from all of that. Virgo is the opposite energy. Virgo is, okay, but what can we do? What is in our control? What new routines can we create? How can we do things that are productive? How can we, um, you know, how can we create systems and routines, and what can we do, what small steps can we take daily to maybe help us come out of this burnout. Virgo's like, okay, I want to work, I want to help, and what small steps can we take every day to actually help with this compassion fatigue and with this burnout that we're feeling. And so that's a lunar eclipse in Virgo on March 3rd. And this is a continuation of eclipses that we've had throughout 2025. So this isn't necessarily a new energy, but it's a continuation, and it's our last eclipse in Virgo. And so you want to look at the Virgo house in your chart to kind of understand what themes might be coming up for you. This is a full moon eclipse, so the Virgo house is highlighted. So you might really be thinking about, some of those themes of, okay, what can I actually do? What is actually in my control as a human being?
Mm.
What can I control in my daily life to kind of help me come out of wherever I may be feeling like burnt out. And what's interesting about this eclipse is that Virgo is ruled by Mercury, but Mercury is going to be retrograde during this eclipse. And so this is a very reflective energy. It's an eclipse that might like reveal things to you that need reflection and reviewing. Past things that you thought maybe were closed and done and taken care of can come up again during this eclipse, and something needs to be edited or revised or fixed. And so with this eclipse energy, it's very much like we're going back, we're reviewing maybe things that have happened throughout 2025. You might be having realizations around some things before we can kind of take action on that. And it's a Mercury retrograde in Pisces that starts on February 25th and goes direct on March 20th. So, this again is highlighting that Pisces house, which I'm talking about,
Yeah.
reviewing all of that. And then also, what do I have control of in my daily life to make things better?
Yeah. I mean, to me, this is kind of like, all right, Saturn is finally out of Pisces. I'm just thinking about my own health journey, really. Now we're going to have a Mercury retrograde there and that eclipse opposing it. And it's like, okay, here's another chance for you to review and revise the things you've been setting up, what's working, what's not, you
Yes.
know. And then that final eclipse that's going to happen over the summer in Pisces, it's like, okay, what did you learn? What are the lessons? I think, at least for me, I feel like I'm going to get some clarity during these two last times with these activations in my sixth house.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. With that other set of eclipses that's happening in August of this year, one of them being in Pisces, but it's a Pisces eclipse that's going to be without Neptune and Saturn in Pisces. And so I think that eclipse is going to be interesting for the Pisces part of our charts. It's going to be like a fresh start without those heavy Saturn Neptune planets there. So
Mhm.
that one's really interesting too. But yeah, I mean, February is just a huge turning point in the year. There's so much happening. I think we can thank the Pisces transits for bringing awareness to our spirituality, bringing awareness to our mental health, bringing
Mm.
awareness to having empathy and compassion for other people, and also showing us where our limits are around those things as well. And now we're moving into an era that's asking us to have courage and to stand up for ourselves and to dream a new dream around individuality and what we have passion to what we're passionate about standing up for and fighting for in our lives.
Mm.
Um, and so this is just the beginning of this transit. Um, but again, I created a whole reading around it, which is the Eclipse and Saturn Neptune alignment reading, because there are so many huge shifts happening that I want people to understand what this means for them and what this means for their own lives, because I can't imagine not having awareness around where these things are happening in my own life, because it really orients me to, okay, where am I being asked to really like step up to the plate and do the work? And what do I need to let go of? And what do I need to lean into? Where is the Saturn and Aries energy calling for maybe some difficulties or challenges in my life?
Mm-hmm.
And how can I be prepared for that? And what is that asking of me, especially as a Libra sun, who is all about relationships and other people, and Aries is very much about individuality and standing up for yourself. Um, with this Aquarius eclipse, it's a brand new energy for us. It's activating Pluto in our charts. And I already feel this is happening in my second house of money and finances, and I already feel it so strongly. And because I know that that energy is in my chart, I can the the intuition that I have to focus on this area of my life, I have reassurance that
Mm.
that's what I'm meant to be focusing on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and validation. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah. And this reading can also help you so much if you have wherever the planets are lying in your chart. If you have personal planets in one of the cardinal signs or in Aries or something's trining something, Shaniel can point that out too. And just the activations that are going to be coming up. I find that like these planets move so slowly, but sometimes it takes one of the smaller planets activating something somewhere else in the chart for then something to happen, whether it's something difficult that you have to work through or, a blessing or some kind of luck that's coming in. So her reading can really give you some clarity on this.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. And it's nice to know where that Pisces area of your life is coming to a close, and what new chapter is
Mm-hmm.
blossoming. And again, the eclipses, anytime we're entering an eclipse portal, the energy can feel really unstable, can feel really rocky. And so having just some guidance and insight into where those eclipses are happening for you can feel really grounding, and can help understand the energy rather than being just like totally thrown off by it. So
Mm-hmm.
if you are feeling called to book this reading, we'll put it in the show notes, or you can visit my website, luckypennyastrology.com, for more information. And I hope to guide you through this big shifts and changes, if you feel called to explore that.
Love that. Please book a reading. You'll have so much clarity.
Okay. Well, thank you for listening. Um, I invite you to reflect on, maybe just where you've been feeling burnt out, where you might feel compassion fatigue, and where you're feeling, ready for a change and ready to kind of stand up for and fight for what you want to create and what you want to see in the world. So,
Mm.
um, happy February. We'll all make it through together. And thank you so much for listening.
Bye.
Bye bye.